Hello and welcome to the Women in Industry podcast. My name is Kirsty Davies-Chinnock and today I'm joined by Karen Robinson from Boal Extrusion. Boal Extrusion has aluminium extrusion facilities in the Netherlands and the United Kingdom, and they specialise in designing, extruding and finishing aluminium profiles for a wide variety of sectors, including high-tech greenhouse construction, building systems, profiles for high-quality partition walls, façade systems, ladder and access product manufacturing, and fastening systems for solar panels. They have over 5 decades worth of experience, allowing them to serve clients all over the world. And Karen is the HR manager at BOAL in the UK. So welcome, Karen. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
I always make a point, and I've said this on a few podcasts, I sort of tend to stalk people a bit on LinkedIn to find out a bit, about them. And you've worked in the manufacturing industry for over 15 years now, and you've worked in a variety of different sectors, automotive, plastics, digital manufacturing, and now you're in aluminium extrusion. So did you plan a career in manufacturing or did it just happen?
In all honesty, no. My degree is actually in media and cultural studies, which is completely different. Having left uni, I got a couple of sales jobs, which I'll be honest, they weren't my cup of tea. The last one was a recruitment company, and unfortunately they closed the office. I was made redundant. And obviously I had bills to pay, so I got a temp job as a receptionist at IAC, which was my first manufacturing position. After, I think it was about 3 weeks, they took me on permanently, and then the HR admin role came available, and they said, well, do you want to give it a go? They paid for me to do my CIPD, and I guess the rest is history, really.
It's quite interesting, and I'm sure other industries are the same, but a lot of people fall into manufacturing by accident and never leave.
No.
You never leave. And so you were doing the role, an admin role in HR. You were doing your CIPD as well.
Yeah.
How did you find working full time and studying at the same time? It's a lot to juggle.
It was. At the time, my husband worked weekends, so it meant that I had the weekends to be able to get my studying done. It was before I had my daughter as well, so I did have more time. But it was tiring, and it was 3 years part time as well. So every Tuesday, I think it was 3 hours in the afternoon, 3 hours in the evening. But I think you just have a determination if it's something that you really want to do. I certainly did, and I think I got very close to the end and thought, I don't know if I can carry on, but I did, and I'm so pleased I did.
It really does give you that, I think, that sort of feeling of accomplishment. I was going to say pride, and I mean pride, but that can sort of come across not as rewarding as the feeling of an accomplishment does. And I think everybody, I took all my degrees while I was working, and there's always that one point towards the end and you just want to throw in the towel.
Yeah.
So you qualified in HR. And then did you stay within the company? Did you go somewhere else?
I then was headhunted to go to Plastic Omnium, and they were starting up a new plant, which was tailgates for Jaguar Land Rover. And I've got to say that was probably one of the best achievements and the greatest achievements, because I was literally given a list of job titles, a list of salaries, off you go. We were moving the tailgates over from France, so there was a lot of travelling involved. But what I liked about the startup was that there was such a camaraderie, and such a close-knit team because we all started together. And weirdly enough, I ended up marrying one of them, but that's another story.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us. Don't worry about it. But doing that, so you were basically just given a shopping list, like go and find these people. That sounds like it would have been great fun, but also there was such a lot of responsibility there. It was like, there's the deep end, can you swim?
Yeah, it was. It was. But I think once we started getting the people on board, it was not long after me that the plant director started. His name was Dave Horseman. And we had a really good relationship, and we just built the team together. And of course, then it was getting into the building, which was brand new. It was putting all the machinery in, and like I said, we were such a close knit team. It was great. We just really gelled, and everybody got on really well.
It's a bit of a sort of like of a dream startup, isn't it? Because
Mm,
you've got your budget, but because you're coming for it's a new branch of an established company.
mm,
There is money in the coffers to
mhm.
do that. Um, so it's what I would plan to do if I ever won the lottery. I'd go
Yeah.
and get my brand new factory built and
Mm,
have a shopping list of machines.
yeah.
Oh, I'm jealous. Jealous. So you've had sort of several different roles, which you
Mm,
touched earlier about the different sectors you've worked in. Does the HR differ greatly depending which sector? I mean, people are
mm,
people and
mm.
jobs are jobs, aren't they? So is it very similar across all the industries you've worked in?
I would say to a degree, yes. You're right. People are people. I would say that the issues that I deal with, the engagement side, the training, that all tends to be the same. Obviously, your product and process are very different. And also whether the site is unionised or not, because that can make quite a difference as well. But I would say the only difference I found really is because of working in first tier automotive, they very much have to go to the beat of the drum of the OEM. So it's very lean, but you've got a lot of systems in place. The only thing I found is going to smaller companies who aren't first tier, or they're just standalone or whatever they may be. They don't always have that structure in place. It's not a bad thing because it means it's something we can work on. But yeah, from what you said, people are people at the end of the day, so it does tend to be quite similar from that perspective.
And what are the things with people being people, and you're going back to setting up that the new factory with the plant director when
Mm,
he came on board with you, is you can directly design the culture you want.
yes.
You've got a blank piece of paper,
Mhm.
whereas anywhere else there is already an element of culture, both
Mhm.
good and bad. I mean,
Yeah.
no company's all good and no company's all bad. There's always a mix.
Mhm.
Um, and culture is really important, and HR is so important with that.
Yeah.
Um, you were talking about systems in smaller companies. Do you find that the lack of systems or an over reliance on systems can impact the culture?
Um, I would say really that it's more if there's a lack of systems, people don't always know any different. If they particularly when they've been in a company for a very long time and this is always the way we've done it. And change is hard. Some people really struggle with change. Um, but I think, particularly when you're looking from an auditing perspective, um, systems are important and they do make your life easier. But it can be difficult if people, when you bring something new in, I think.
Yeah, and you don't want people to be over reliant on them and lose
Mm,
that element of creativity, do you? I suppose.
yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
So, what does a typical day look like for you? What do you work on a regular
Mm.
basis?
Do you know, it's funny because no 2 days are ever the same. Um, I'm a generalist. I do everything. And I like it that way. I've never wanted to specialise, to be honest. So I look after the whole cycle, employee cycle. So right from recruitment all the way through to when the person leaves the business. So, learning and development, succession planning, employee engagement. We do a lot of things around charity work. And just, I mean, we had a burger van the other week just as a thank you to our colleagues for working really hard this year. And I like that. I really like that side of thing. I really like the whole people as people rather than just people who just do bits and stuff. Um, And I really, yeah, that's my type of thing. But no 2 days are ever the same. I can honestly say that. Never have been.
I think we're recording this in December for it to go
Yes.
out in January. So it's that time of year where you really can treat the team. Like you said, you had a
Yeah.
burger van. We gave out chocolates
Hmm.
yesterday. Tomorrow we've got a buffet. So but it is nice to have that little interaction with people and remind them that, you know, they are valued.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Because I think perhaps maybe the old-fashioned way of thinking things, and you know, we were mentioning culture earlier, is do as I tell you, just get the parts out the door. And now we are in a business and a climate where people are really important, because actually they're the ones that get the work done. They're the ones that will get the good quality parts out the door. And just encouraging people to perhaps be more compassionate and you know, treat people as they would wish to be treated themselves in many ways. And so there's definitely a culture piece of moving away from the old-fashioned manufacturing culture to a more compassionate and holistic approach, I think.
Definitely. I mean, I know I spent probably 20 odd years trying to get rid of the them and us. And by bringing on the person who's making the parts, getting their collaboration, getting their ideas, you know, this is an intelligent person and that's the job that they do. If anyone's going to know how to shave 30 seconds off getting that part from start to finish, it's them. Ask them.
Yeah.
So you're in the aluminium extrusion sector now. Is the metal sector similar to others you've worked in? Are there any glaring differences, or is it, you know, still?
Quite different, because I mean, most of my background has been plastics. When I worked at Liberty Pressings, that was metal bashing effectively. But the business itself was in a very, very different place. Since I've left, the business has actually closed down. It's no longer there. Whereas where I am now is very profitable. In fact, we've just done quite a big investment. We've bought a new log oven for Press 6. So the businesses themselves are very different, so it's difficult to compare. Also here we have so many different types of customers, whereas at Liberty were mainly automotive. So it was difficult to compare those, really.
And I think, you know, just looking at what BOAL do, you're not tied into one specific sector.
Yeah.
Your products go into so many. If one's quiet, then another's busy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about diversification, isn't it? You know, and that's going to help the business to grow and prosper.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about diversification, as well as
Mm-hmm.
your day job, you're also a certified coach,
I am.
an ICF certified coach. What made you look at coaching specifically?
I think, well, there's various reasons. In HR, you are a natural coach anyway. I think that I've always had an interest in how the human mind works. And you know, I don't know, it just fascinates me. I felt that I'd got to a point in my HR career where I thought I just need something else. And the thing is with coaching, it's different to counselling, because counselling is more problem focused and more about the past, whereas coaching is more solution focused and more about the future. And you know, for me, if I want to be able to help people, that's what I am about, really, in my core. So it just seemed something like a natural flow for me to go into. And once I'd actually completed my course, I loved it, absolutely loved it.
I think you made an interesting point there, the difference between counselling and coaching. And coaching isn't going to give you the answers. It's going to enable you to almost be empowered. I'm not sure I like the word empowered, but empowered to have the courage to carry on, to learn new skills, learn new tools, take that scary step.
That's it.
So you're almost the stabilisers on a bike, aren't you, at the beginning of
Yeah,
someone's
that's a really
journey?
good analogy. Yeah, I like that.
I like that as well. I impress
Yeah,
myself sometimes.
I might use that if you don't mind.
That's fine. I might. I wonder if stabilisers on a bike. Karen's the stabilisers on your bike. That might be your podcast title.
There you go.
But you said you went into this because you wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And you're a volunteer at St Giles Hospice, a volunteer coach.
Mm.
How did you get involved with that?
So, so St Giles Hospice, they're based just outside Lichfield in the Midlands. They look after people basically. It tends to be palliative end of life care. Ever since I can remember, my dad used to do fundraising for them. And then as I grew older, I sort of did it the same. And then unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I've lost a few people close to me over the past few years. But I say fortunately because their final days, they were in St Giles, and I cannot tell you how great the people there are. And for me, yeah, I still do fundraising. I did an abseil in April for them. But for me, I wanted to be able to give something else back. So I do some coaching with some of the senior leadership team there. And that was, yeah. And I really enjoy it. And it's something for them as well. They're getting something out of it as well.
Which is, going back to you wanting to help people, but you're
Yeah.
helping the people who help others.
Yeah.
I'm a business ambassador for Acorns Children's Hospice.
Yeah.
And the first time I went round one of the hospices, it surprised me at what such a sort of calm and almost happy place it was. They're not scary, and the people there are just having the most wonderful care for when they need it most. And I think sometimes we're a bit too scared to open the door a bit. Whereas finding out before you or someone you love needs it is probably the best thing to do.
Oh, definitely.
So obviously it sounds incredibly rewarding, the coaching you're doing with the leadership team at St Giles Hospice. When you have a regular client, Joe Blogs or Jane Blogs, what part of the coaching journey that you're on with them is most rewarding for you?
There's a few things. The light bulb moment is always great when they suddenly realise something, or something just falls into place for them. Being able to see the difference from when they join me and then several coaching sessions later, and sometimes it's like a weight's been lifted, they've got some form of clarification on something, or they've got a plan in place and they're starting to move forwards with this plan. And I just think it's the making the difference. And I always say to people, oh, you've done some really great work this session. And they'll say, oh, no, it wasn't me, it was you. And I'm like, it wasn't. I don't do the work. I just ask you a couple of questions, really. You're the one that's thinking about it and, opening those parts of the brain that we don't always have open and things like that. So, but it's great when you see them walk out the door and they've got a massive grin on the face, or they've got that plan of action in place, and that they're just going to go and smash it. It's great.
It's when you're in that moment when you're sort of firing on all cylinders and you feel like nothing can stop you. It's amazing, A, how much you can physically get done, and B, it's such a fabulous sort of moment. If I'm in that sort of zone, I have my own soundtrack going on in the background.
Do you?
It's normally This Girl Is on Fire, but
I love it.
You just do. You don't feel like anything can stop you. And it takes all the hard work out of it. You just sort of fly through it, which is absolutely fantastic. And having someone put you on that path where, you're going to fall over occasionally, but if you can sort of keep going, even when it gets a bit sticky underfoot, and that's normally because you're scared.
Exactly.
Or absolutely terrified. And when you're sort of scared or terrified or doubting yourself, it's really easy to sort of, not carry on that path to procrastinate.
Yeah.
And you put a really interesting post up on LinkedIn a few weeks ago where you were talking about procrastination being more about emotions
Mm-hmm.
than physical behaviours or task-based
Yeah.
behaviours. Could you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest, you mentioned a few things there. So, a lot of people think procrastination is about being lazy or having no or little motivation, when in actual fact, it's really about fear of failure. You know, you have you have negative self-doubt, and I can't do this. Why would they pick me? There's a little bit of imposter syndrome going on there, and really, it's about overcoming those negative feelings and thoughts and behaviours, and if anything, trying to be brave, coming out of your comfort zone. As humans, we are hardwired to want to go towards pleasure rather than pain. So why would you risk the pain of failing when, if you're in your comfort zone, you're actually quite happy and cozy and it's lovely and warm and squishy. But that's okay in the short term. But in the long term, actually, you're not going to get anywhere. So the idea behind it is that you sort of give yourself a prep talk and you become brave and you take those risks. And it might just be one little thing at a time. We're not expecting massive leaps and bounds here. It is just one step at a time. But the idea being is that you take those little risks, you step outside your comfort zone, and then in the long term, that's where you get the pleasure. That's where you get your reward.
That's really interesting. You talk about the sort of the comfort zone, and it's sort of being all warm and squishy. And most people who were in a comfort zone, at some point, that was the scary place. Whether it was being headhunted to be head of HR and set up a new plant in the UK from a job you'd already been in. So the comfort zone constantly moves. Do you think, how fast the comfort zone moves sometimes? Or is it the fact it's almost not moving at all that almost make people become almost blinkered to what they can and can't achieve?
I suppose that's really about, I understand where you're coming from. It's about a growth or a fixed mindset. So people with a fixed mindset are very much, this is my lot, this is my box, this is where I am in my comfort zone, and you just sort of move with it. With the growth mindset, you think, actually, I can learn new skills. I can learn to be able to do things in a different way, and I am willing to take that risk. So I think the comfort zone, I suppose, as well, like you said, because it's movable, you can actually, I suppose, it expands as well. So you may feel comfortable in one area in your life and then think, I'm happy at home, I've got a lovely life, but I want to make that extra step in my career or something like that. So I'm not really answering your question. I'm thinking about it from several different aspects.
No, I just thought that it was really interesting what you said, and you mentioned risk as well. And there's also, I suppose, the possibility that stepping outside your comfort zone isn't a calculated risk. It can also be reckless.
Yeah.
If you sort of jump too far or in the wrong direction,
It could be.
and how people. I've got an analogy of people jumping out of like a lifeboat and like missing the shore and like having to swim back, which is a really bad visual. But it's how would you coach people to calculate whether a risk is a potentially good risk? That there are potential rewards if the work's put in and some luck, or if it's pretty much purely reckless. How would you get them to identify between the two?
Usually in a coaching session, I'd start off with effectively, where are you now? Where do you want to be? And then we do some work on that. Where do you want to be? How important is it to them to get there? Questions like that will make you think, well, do I risk losing the roof over my head? Or is it just really important so I can spend a bit more time with my family, but I might have to put a bit of extra work in the meantime, or, something along those lines. And it's really, really being able to dig down into exactly what it is that they want. Once we've established that, then we can start looking at, well, this is where you are now. How are you going to get there? And I think when you're going through the journey of how you get there, and this isn't necessarily in one session, this is over a period of time, again, you start chunking it down, breaking it down into little steps. And as you take those little steps, then you'll start to see, well, yeah, I've got to put my foot out. It's a bit like dipping your toe in the water, isn't it? So I'll go and do this and I'll see how I get on. If I fail, then I'm going to learn from it. And then I'm going to try something slightly different, and then we'll go from there. And it's really about making sure they know. It's almost a visualization. Sometimes we use vision boards. Sometimes it's just a case of discussing it and really going into detail as to what they want. But yeah, really understanding what it is, and then you sort of see the risks as you go along, I think, and they then will see them themselves.
I think that's really interesting, sort of the dipping the toe in the water analogy. But more importantly, you just said, if it fails, learn from it.
Yeah.
If you've got to go from 1 to 100, go 1 to 5, and if that fails, you can turn left a bit and maybe you'll get to 10 in that direction. If you go from 1 to 100 immediately, the failure is going to be much bigger, but also it's going to probably stop you from trying again.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn from it, you're going to hide from it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole procrastination thing again.
So talking about comfort zones there,
yeah.
So I'm going to be a bit cheeky now. When did you last step out of your comfort zone?
I'm doing it right now. I've never done a podcast before, so you're my first. And I was a little bit nervous because I thought, what happens if I forget what I want to say? What happens if I flip up, but I'm enjoying myself. So.
Oh, that's good, because I'm still fairly new at it, I think.
Yeah.
And so in 2023 we've released 32.
Really? Wow.
We've had all sorts of technical issues. We've had people's cameras not work. We've had sound disappear. I've had to re-record too because it just went so wrong. But
oh no.
I know. But again, it's about stepping outside your comfort zone. It's not about the first one. It's about number 100.
Exactly.
And hopefully by then I'll be better at it.
You will. Well, you're doing a great job now, Kirsty.
Well, I'm just nosy. I just like hearing from you all who are doing such great things. You mentioned the abseil that you did, but you've also recently done a dog-friendly run to raise money for charity. For a company or charity that works with ways to help prevent homelessness and work with people who are suffering from homelessness. Is that through BOAL as well? Are you sort of all working together? Is that one of your charitable causes?
Yeah, so it was the Loughborough Santa run, which unfortunately, because of the weather, actually got cancelled in the end.
No.
However, the girls, there's me, the general manager, and one of the girls from my finance, we're going to go and still do it around Shepshed next week. So we are still going to go and do it, although it'll be minus my dogs because I can't bring them into work. But yeah, so it's Falcon Service Support, and you're right, they help the homeless people within Loughborough and the surrounding area. They've got it's an old pub, I believe, and they've converted some of the rooms upstairs. So they've got places for people to come during the day. They've got a little canteen, they can play darts or board games or read a book or whatever, and there's lots of support there for them as well. I even saw that they have something called Street Vet, so there's a vet that will come out and see the dogs as well. Unfortunately, they've had their funding withdrawn very recently. I don't know the politics, to be fair, but it just means that they need our support more than ever before. So BOAL in the UK decided that they would be our charity for 2024. And yeah, the Santa Run was just a start off really for that. But yeah, it's just about looking after people in the local community, because these people could come and work for us, or they know someone who works for us, and so we just want to be able to look after people really.
And I think particularly with the current economic climate over the last few years, everybody is at risk of homelessness. It's just how many pay packets away you are from it.
Totally agree.
And I think we show ourselves to really care about the community when we work with people on the ground and actually work with some of the most vulnerable people in that community.
Yeah.
Particularly those who often are ignored or ostracised, and people look the other way. And we've all done that when somebody walks down between cars at a traffic light. If you're on your own, it's like, I don't want to open the window. But then if I walk past someone in a busy town centre and there's lots of people around, and you're aware you're making judgments and they're probably not true, but you still do it anyway. And then a bit later you go, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that. But again, it's part of being human, I suppose.
Yeah, there's so many different things and documentaries on TV as well about homeless people who've actually got a 3-bed house, and
I don't believe any of that. Nobody is going to lie on a cold concrete floor at -2 degrees, covered in rain, because they've got a 3-bedroom house somewhere.
No.
So, and we're over time. Oh my goodness! And it's me not looking at the time. That is. Finally, Karen, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I've got 2 bits actually. The first one is, don't take criticism from someone who you wouldn't go to for advice.
Oh, I like that.
And I think sometimes, when you're trying really hard, and there are some people in this world, unfortunately, who just want to give you a hard time. And I think sometimes you need to remember that maybe it's a reflection on them and not you. But yeah, and it's something that I do try to remember. The second piece of advice would be that when you go into a business, I don't think you don't have to be in HR, you could be any business really, but learn all the departments, understand who their internal customers and their internal suppliers are. And I found that particularly interesting because A, I want to understand how a business works. B, in the position that I'm in, I need to really understand so that people don't fob me off, because sometimes they try to. And C, really, HR is should be sat at the top table, and it's part of the company strategy. There are a few perhaps old-fashioned views that we just hirers and firers, but we actually have so much more value to add to a business. And by understanding everything else that goes on in the business, that's just adding strings to your bow, really.
That's excellent. I think that's really important. It's also a really, really astute move if you're joining a company and you're hungry for success.
Yep.
Because the more you learn, the more you'll know, the more people will come to you with questions. The more that incredibly good reputation internally will expand externally. And before you know it, you're one to watch. So, thank you so much for joining us, Karen. I really appreciate it. And well, this is after Christmas now. This is going out, so I hope you had a good Christmas.
Thank you.
And since we're recording it before Christmas, Merry Christmas.
And you, Merry Christmas. Thank you so much, Kirsty. I've really enjoyed today. Thank you.